Here's that other mic you asked for.
Oh, thanks, Ryan. Now what? Hey, James G here with Tarpley Music in Fort Worth, Texas. Remember, you can always find us online at tarpleymusic.com, and please subscribe to our channel below if you haven't done so already. So maybe you're new to recording a guitar at home, or you have been recording a guitar at home, but not really getting sounds that you really like. So today I wanted to talk about some really basic miking techniques for miking acoustic guitar that have proven to be very effective. Now, it is very subjective in a lot of ways when you're talking about miking and what you want to hear. And so there's no end-all, be-all, do it exactly like this every time. It could be the room that you're in. It could be the guitar that you're playing. It's the player playing the guitar. It's the type of mic, and the list goes on and on and on. So these are some basic starting points that I've used in studios I've worked in at my home recording studio that are very effective. And so these are the type of mics that I'm going to cover in today's miking techniques. So the first one we're going to do is with a large diaphragm condenser, which if you're doing vocals and guitar at home, you probably have some version of a large diaphragm condenser. These days you can get anywhere from $99 and up that are work very effective. We're also going to talk about dynamic microphones. This is a little bit different. This is an E906. If you've seen our videos, we use this a lot for dynamics. It's a really great Sennheiser microphone, but you probably have something more like an SM57 or an Audix i5 or something like this. This is a PGA81 by Shure. These are more of a directional dynamic mic, which can be used for certain types of guitar when you're wanting to record it. And the last thing we're going to do is talk about using a pair of small diaphragm condenser microphones, like pencil-style condensers like this, and some different techniques with using two in this. Now, like I said, this is going to be some basic techniques video. In later videos, we'll get into some really different, more advanced kind of miking and things like this. I think you'll find a lot of useful information that's very simple to do, give you a starting point so you can make great acoustic guitar recordings at home. So for these videos, I'm using a Taylor 110E. So this is a great just mid-level guitar that a lot of people probably have something similar to it if they're, players or recording at home. And so we are going to start with the large diaphragm condenser microphone. Like I said before, this is the AKG C214. And it's a pretty basic technique once you're dealing with a large diaphragm condenser. You want to get anywhere from 6 to 12 inches away from the guitar. You generally want to start at turning it to where you're at it, but somewhere like the 12th to 14th fret. Now, this gives you your most natural guitar sound generally. You can definitely move this up the neck if you want a thinner sound. You could move this and turn it closer to the sound hole if you want like a bigger bassier sound. But this is generally where I start as a starting point. Just a good large diaphragm condenser, about 6 to 12 inches away, placing about the 12th to 14th fret. So a lot of people might start really just going right at this sound hole, thinking they're going to get the most sound. But what you're really doing is a lot of times you're capturing way too much bass, and you're going to have to EQ and roll off that bass when you're actually in the recording. But you may want that if you're doing a solo acoustic thing like that. Like I said, this is all subjective. What I want to give you is very good starting points. So once again, right here between the 12th and the fret, and I tend to be just a little bit closer unless I'm really hammering and strumming really hard. You want to start about 8 to 12 from there. If I get a thinner sound hole, real bassy and overbearing, right? And a lot of it is trial and error, moving it around. If I was recording someone else playing the guitar, I would literally get down in front of them and move my head around to figure out where's that best middle of the road natural sound coming from the guitar, and I would start the microphone there. A lot of us that when we're at home by ourselves don't have that opportunity, so you kind of just have to mess around with it. So after doing that before, just a great full natural sound. It's great to do with the large diaphragm condenser. Okay, so now we're moving on to one of two dynamic mics that I want to do. And like I said, this is the Sennheiser E906. So it's a little bit different shape of a dynamic mic, and also a really good one. So dynamic mics aren't too often used for acoustic guitar recordings, but sometimes they are, especially if you have a really aggressive strumming and you want it really percussive, so not necessarily a fuller round sound, but a very, very focused sound. They can work really, really well. So I'm going to just do these. I'm just doing some basic money chords, right? Just to get a real basic idea. And we'll have it with this, and then I'm going to show another dynamic mic. As far as placement, it's placed just much like the large diaphragm condenser mic is. You're going to go from about 6 to 12 inches, turn to about the 12th to 14th fret. It's your best starting point. Happen to be on this one, that flat right onto about the 15th fret is where I've gotten my best sound, about 6-7 inches away. Now, you can get a really rumbly bass sound by getting a dynamic mic really, really close to a sound hole of this, especially if you're doing arpeggiatic or something. Then, of course, as soon as you get aggressive, you're going to probably start really clipping out and maxing out on that. So now I have another dynamic mic set up, but this is more of a directional dynamic mic that you're probably used to. Very, very common one is the Shure SM57, been around literally since 1957. It's a great mic for that. Audix i5. This is the PGA81 by Shure. This is a great instrument mic. This is really kind of what this is designed for, and also like snare drums, toms, maybe hand drums, miking amps and cabs and things like that. But this, basically the same thing. Now with a directional mic like this, you tend to want to go more back to the sound hole and then spread it this way, because you've got a 90-degree angle this way. So you're getting about half the mic into the sound hole, and then the other half is getting up to about that 12th fret that I've mentioned before. So the first pattern I'm going to show you with using two small diaphragm condensers or pencil condensers is the XY, or the coincidental pattern. So it's where you take two mics. We actually have them on one stand here with a double clip, where the capsules go over each other in a 90-degree angle pattern. And this is really good for getting a good focus from the mid-range to the high range of the guitar. I use this a lot personally at home. It's a really good range. And what I tend to do on this is you won't want a hard pan left and right. What that means in the mixers, where you take one mic all the way to the left and one mic all the way to the right, but you do want to pan them slightly. I usually start about halfway between there, and you get this really nice kind of full sound from that. So the second technique that I'm using with two small diaphragm condensers is the AB technique, or the spaced technique. So what this is using the two small diaphragm condensers spaced out and hard panned left and right, so you get a really nice stereo sound. I tend to use this with really high-end guitars sometimes because they got such a great full spectrum of sound generally, that I want to get that full stereo sound. Might even add a room mic or something to it. But now what you have to be careful with in this is a phase issue or an out of phase issue. If you don't know what phasing is phasing is if something is out of phase, that means the microphones, the source does not hit at the same time. Okay, so it's all out of phase. It's not equal like that. So there's a good rule of thumb that I've been taught and I've always used, is the 3-in-1 technique. And what that means is you want to have 3 times the distance between these two mics that you are from the guitar. So most of the time, my starting point, I start at 6 inches from the guitar, so times 3 is 18, so I want to make sure there's 18 inches from here. And like I said, you get hard pan left and right, you get a really nice stereo sound. So the third way I have these two small diaphragm condensers set up is vertically spaced, or I call vertical inline. And so it's the two small diaphragms. They're on top of each other vertically, except they both have about a 45-degree angle. So the bottom one is hitting the high 3 strings, the top one is hitting the low 3 strings, and then there's a nice core where they mix. So they're 90-degree angles that are crossing each other. So I don't use this one too terribly often, but I have used it on some thinner body acoustics, and it seems to give it a little bit more fullness, a little bit more airiness by kind of separating the highs and lows from this. But it's a cool technique to try. Like I said, miking there's a lot of different techniques, and it's very subjective, and you might be trying to get something completely different. So when in doubt, experiment. But this is the vertically inline with the two small diaphragm condensers. So I hope you learned some great techniques that can be used for recording acoustic guitar at home, or even if you're starting your own studio, whatever it is. These are just great techniques that I always start with. Like I've said before, it's very subjective. There's a lot of trial and error to movements. Every guitar is different, every player is different. There's so many factors that a lot of times when you're recording, most of it is setup. Very little bit's the playing, right? So I have the biggest thing. There's one rule that I always go by, and I call it GI rats, which is get it right at the source, right? And so that means if I record a really, really good part, it's less I have to do later if I get a good sound first. So many people go, okay, well, I got a signal, we'll fix it, and no, you won't. Okay, get it right at the source. And I think these are some really great techniques that, for me, work most of the time. And I've been recording for about 30 years. So as a player, as an assistant tech in studios, as the main engineer, and everything in between session playing, that these are always most of these techniques really work unless I'm going for something specifically different. We will have another video where I do talk about some more advanced kind of different styles like mid-side or bloom line configuration, close adding room mics and things like that. We will do another video. But this, to me, is the bulk of most of the time when you hear a really good acoustic guitar track. It's probably one of these techniques, but with good mics, a good player, getting it right at the source. So really hope you enjoyed this video. Hit like if you did. If you got any questions or comments or ideas for us, please leave them, and we'll get back to you as quick as we can. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And if you'd like to know as we drop more of these videos, just turn on notifications. We'll see you on the next one.